Hi, I'm Arnie, and today we're going to talk a little bit about rat rods and introduce you to the rat rod culture and the build. And to do that, we're going to talk about a rat rod that Bob Bendtsen, our master technician here at Bendtsen Speed Gyms, has built. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob. Bob, tell us about your rat rod.
Well, I think everybody watching this probably already knows what a rat rod is, so that's not really what we're talking about. I guess we're just talking about evolution of building this one. But I started probably 20 years ago building this one. I mean, it looks kind of like a boilerplate, stamp it out rat rod now, but when I first started building this thing, there weren't a lot of these around like this. And it was one of those deals where I was building cars all day long, and when I started doing this one, I got bored after a while, so I just pushed it off to the side. I know a lot of guys have projects that get pushed off to the side, but this one sat for years. And it didn't start out with the motor it's got in it now. You know, I got that big Seagrave motor in there. I think a lot of guys are actually familiar with this car. It's been on a magazine cover and a bunch of YouTube videos. But I got this Seagrave V12 in it, but it started out as a Lincoln 337 with stack injection. And then it sat for years and years and years, and I finally finished it, and this is kind of what it is right now. I'll just walk around and show you some stuff on it. Alright, so right now the thing that's the most noticeable on it, it's a 1941 Seagrave V12, 462 cubic inches, and it came out of a fire truck. That's why it's got dual plugs, dual distributors, dual carburation. You can shut distributors off with a switch inside the vehicle. I actually have them set right now to be slightly off in the timing, so it runs almost like a like it's got an MSD on it. I personally made all the internals on the distributors, so it's electronic ignition, even though it looks kind of stock. When I rebuilt this engine, I took it out of a vehicle running, but when I took it apart, I found out that any parts store you call will tell you that no such thing exists and that I'm stupid and crazy or an idiot and don't know what I've got, and well, it just showed me that they have no clue. So anyway, I ended up making parts. I took the camshaft out, sent it out to Berry Cam, had it reground, same with the lifters. Crankshaft was pretty good. I had that just polished. I did find a timing chain for it. The pistons, I had to take those out, weld them up, turn them down, and then I used two sets of 216 Chevrolet truck rings, which is it's a four-ring piston in those big truck 216s, and that's what this is, a four-ring piston. So I got the thing rebuilt finally. It wasn't easy. Then I sent the generator out and had it turned into 12 volt because back then it was 6 volt positive ground. This piece on the side that is so many people look at that and they wonder what it is when they're looking at it at the car show. That's actually the water pump, externally driven water pump. The radiator I had custom made down in Indianapolis. There's some pretty good metal workers down in Indianapolis. Found a guy to make that for me. What else? We had to lengthen the frame 10 inches to get that big engine in there. And of course, we built the adapter for it, and the adapter is the rear engine mount. You can see right here the aluminum piece between the 700 R4 that's in it. This is the adapter plate. Of course, there's a crank adapter, flex plate, mini high torque starter, and then we have it mounted to the frame right here. Matter of fact, we have that on all our BPMs, LaFrance, Seagrave, a couple other ones. When their engines are really big like that, we put the mounting tabs on the back so you can actually mount the motor on it. The headlights are off a 37 Pontiac, and I didn't know that until a guy walked up to me at a car show and said, "Hey, where'd you get the 37 Pontiac headlights?" And I'm like, "Cool, you identified them for me." You know, there's obviously a swap meet deal. To get the engine in, we had to do more than just lengthen it too. I had to drop the frame here. It's been totally reworked on the front and the rear. I don't know if you can see the different colors on the leaf springs, but we just had to add leaves until it could support the weight correctly. Front brakes are 39 Lincoln backing plates, and then we used a 69 Buick brake drums and 69 Buick brakes, which are, I think they're 2.5 by 12s, which is exactly the same size as the rear brakes on my 1-ton dually. So they had some pretty big brakes on it. The thing stops really well. And everyone's always asking me about why this looks so even, because the brake drums weren't. I actually took those drums and I didn't like the unevenness of them, and I turned the back down so they were nice and smooth, but they work really well. The top is chopped 4 inches. Pretty common on all street rods these days. You see a 31 Model A, and they're about all got a 4-inch chop in them. This one's a little different in that the top is filled with my 54 Packard that I chopped up. I looked at that car, and you look at the roof, and the roof line, it went from very flat to slightly tapered to severely tapered in the length of the Packard. And I knew that somewhere in between there it would fit. So I took the whole roof after I cut this out, and I laid it on here, and I slid it back and forth until it fit perfectly. Then I just drew the line on the inside, cut it out, and welded that on it. It looks like it was made for it. It's got the perfect slope. And then we suicided the doors. Worked out pretty well. In the interior, I got the tilt steering column, and for gauges I put 52 Dodge, that space bubble gauge system in it. Looks kind of cool. And, once we started driving the thing, it was so hard to steer because of the weight that I decided to try out one of those new electric power assist steering. That worked out pretty well. The thing steers really well with that in there. I was shocked. You know, I never really thought it would work really well, but it does. It's a really good upgrade. And in the back. Oh, one of the things I did with it was I wanted to use all old wiring. So I had a whole bunch of old wiring left from some cars we'd done wiring changeovers on. So I got all the cloth wiring in it. You want to shoot the trunk lid here? This trunk lid's got 100 louvers in it. And everybody that's had louvers done knows what that costs. All LED tail lights, and when you're driving, they all shine through the louvers. I just couldn't see putting those. I see all these guys with these tiny little lights on there with these little purple dots on it, and I think, you know, I want to be seen when I'm driving around. These things light up the night. You can see it's all old cloth wiring. This unit here is a rather than using a pitman arm, which actually to some extent shoves the car back and forth on the rear end, side to side. So I went with a Watts link. The Watts link keeps it perfectly stabilized in the car on up and down. And when I first built it, I also put the Franklin rear end in it. The Franklin rear end just plain made too much noise, because if you think about it, it's really only about 36 inches away from your ear when you're driving down the road, even though there's this thin sheet metal in between. So I put a 9-inch in, changed that out. The brakes are activated by a 7/8 ground rod that's about 8 feet long. It runs through linear bearings on the inside of the frame, and the frame's been stiffened so it can't flex. And the brake booster and power master cylinder are here at the back of the car. If you look down by the rear end there, you can see the master cylinder there and the power booster. So that got it out of the engine compartment. I didn't want that cluttering up the engine compartment. Battery's back there too. And we custom made the fuel tank to fit in there. And then another thing I didn't like was all the Model A bodies that sit way up in the back. So this whole section here has been reworked. We cut the bottom piece off right here so it would end up with the factory 28 to 31 Model A dimension here. But you can see this line here, that's actually a weld line where we raised the wheel well up inside of the stock body and then made it reconnect to this bottom piece so that we could drop the whole body back down. So it's been chopped, channeled, and sectioned. Oh, I never even said anything. The original body on this thing, I found the body on this thing about 20-some years ago, leaning against a tree in a swamp. The bottom was rotted off it. That's why you can see along the bottom all the new metal, the new cowl. Kind of looks like a lot of other street rods, but it's been around a long time. I've been running it to shows for, I think, 12 years now. And it was actually kind of a, people remember it a lot from back at 100-car pileup. And you guys have been around for a while. You remember the 100-car pileup. I mean, it's not around anymore, but that was a pretty cool venue. So I think there's a bunch of YouTube videos of this thing out there. If you YouTube Seagrave V12, this thing comes up a lot, and those videos are from the 100-car pileup.